if you have hip pain in the front of your hips, when you squat down, if it feels pinchy or impinging in the front of your hips when you squat, here's a couple tests that you can do to determine if it's primarily a mobility versus a stability issue. First thing I want you to do is get a low bench here, so low enough to where you're in a full squat, meaning the hips are slightly below the knees. From that position, the first test I want you to do is just an air squat. So in front of that bench, air squat down, keeping good form all the way down, touch that bench, come back up. I want you to see if it feels pinchy. If it feels like it's pinching in the front of the hip, the next test I want you to do is just sit down on that bench, nice and relaxed. Bring those feet nice and tight, just as if you were gonna squat. But what I want you to do is keep everything nice and relaxed here. I just want you to sit up nice and straight and begin to hinge forward at the hip. So what you can see is that I'm creating this hip flexion, but I'm completely relaxed. I'm not engaged in the glutes or anything like that. The only thing I'm engaging is my core to stay nice and upright here. I'm gonna hinge forward as if I had a bar on my back and as if I was going to stand up here. But I'm just gonna get into this hinged position and see if it still pinches in my hip. If I still feel pinching when I'm completely relaxed through here, it's primarily a mobility issue. We're gonna say that you're restricted somewhere in the hip. Even when you're completely relaxed, you feel that pinching in there, that's probably a mobility issue. If you feel no pinching when you're in this position, but you start to feel the pinching when you're in an active squat position, that's going to be primarily a stability issue, meaning your hip is not stabilizing itself within the joint. Another test to confirm that is if you just lie straight back on the bench or on the ground and just passively bring that hip up into full flexion. So you can see I have the hip fully flexed here. I'm completely relaxed. I shouldn't feel any pinching here. If I still feel pinching here, that's telling me that the joint is restricted somewhere, or there's an internal joint pathology that needs to be addressed. Maybe the joint is restricted and you're not getting full range of motion through the joint, or maybe there's an underlying hip issue there that's creating that pinching feeling. But work on mobility if you still feel that pinching in the passive range of motion.